we are joined by Tom Holmoe, the AD of BYU. Great to see him. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
What's going on? Great to be with you today.
Good to see you. I hope you don't mind me asking. You've done an amazing amount for BYU as an athlete, a student, representing the school, your alma mater, and as AD too. Was it just time for you to look to something else, to smell the roses, so to speak? Or has the changing landscape in college athletics perhaps also been a part of your decision?
Yeah, let me answer. That's a good question because I think it's a little bit of both. The first is, I turned 60 a couple of years ago, and I thought people started coming up to me saying, "Hey, when are you going to retire? Are you going to retire?" And I'm like, "Hey, leave me alone. I'm doing fine. I'm fine." And then 61, 62, 63, 64, I just kept going. And then last summer, I was at the beach in Southern California, down by my home where I grew up, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. So it was right there. So that part of it, I just hadn't really been looking forward to, but I knew it was right. The second part of it, though, is the interesting part. I'm super excited about the future of BYU athletics. I'm excited about the future of athletics across the country in general. I think that we have a good finger on the pulse of where we need to go. But like every other athletic director and department, we are really not exactly sure where it's going, but we're all going at the same pace. I think it's fair. We're all going to have to use be at our strategic best to figure out NIL and roster limits and transfer portal and all the things that are going on. And there will always be changes in the world of college athletics or sports in general. And so I'm not afraid of what's coming. I just think it's important that we have someone at BYU that can start right now, that can hit the next 5 years. The next 5 years are going to be critically important.
Yeah, and look, Tom, you've done a lot. It's time to go smell the roses a little bit. What do you have you thought about what retirement looks like for a guy who works as hard and as much as you do?
Not really. I mean, my wife and I have talked about a lot. We just feel that I have 10 grandkids and one on the way that's due next week. So that'll make number 11. And I just feel like this is the right time. All I can say is there's no magic number of how many years I had to be here or what age I had to be at, because I've had like 3 kind of different careers. As a professional player, I was a athletic coach, and I'm an administrator. So like the numbers really don't mean anything to me. It's just a matter of whether I feel I can give 100% every day of the week. And I'm at that point right now where I can, but I do not want to be at the point a year from now or half a year from now where all of a sudden I'm feeling like, I should have made this decision last year. So we're in a good spot for us to pass the baton. I want the next AD to take this thing and let's roll. Let's go, Cougs.
Tom, you talk about being in a good spot. Football obviously had an incredible season, and you could argue should have had even maybe more there at the end of the rainbow if those in charge viewed you guys a little bit differently or similar to how they apparently viewed other teams. But that aside, you guys went to the bowl game, beat Colorado, and left no doubts about just how good of a team you were. And then here with basketball as well, I know there's various other sports, but can't overlook the big win over Kansas and just how much attention that's brought and how much excitement that has brought with the job just Kevin Young's doing, the Marriott Center, just how much energy and excitement for people who haven't experienced or haven't seen it maybe is surrounding BYU basketball right now.
Well, it's good. I mean, we had a surprise when Coach Pope left to take the job at Kentucky. He had done a very, very good job for us. And we had a really good hire with Kevin, and Kevin's off and running. I think one of the things that makes it so exciting is that BYU Cougar Nation, BYU fans across the country and here at home have been chomping at the bit for 50 years trying to get into what was considered a P5 or whatever you want to call it, Autonomy 5 conference. And I think a lot of this is how it's all come together, where we're in a good spot with our coaches and our student athletes, and then the Big 12 opportunity came along. We are enamored with Big 12. We love every site. We love the teams. We love the travel. We love everything about it because Man, I just made a road swing with our basketball team, went to Cincinnati and West Virginia. Those were two tough games. And one thing that a lot of our fans had not seen forever is that every single game that you come to at LaVell Edwards Stadium or the Marriott Center with the Big 12 is going to be a battle royal. And our fans love every second of that. And so I think that being in the conference right now, we respect this conference so much that it's just the perfect stars are aligned right now for us to hit it and then just compete. Because, man, we had a really, really good year this year and didn't win the conference in football. And we're having a really, really good year in basketball, and we're in 5th place. So what's that all about? That is super competitive. I love it.
Yeah, damn Houston, Iowa State, and Arizona, and everybody else. Could your legacy have did getting BYU into the conference, because there was a time a few years ago, but by getting in it and now being a part of it before you decide to move on, does this solidify in any way your legacy or validate it?
I don't really get hung up on that. I'm not a big legacy guy. I think the thing that I appreciate the most as I look back at my tenure is that we've had some of the most amazing student athletes and coaches here that you could ever dream of. And I don't even want to start naming them, but you could. The record books are full. We've had players of the year at the conference level, at the national level. We've had Hall of Fame coaches. And just the quality of these kids for my 20 years. I just ran into one of our Olympians in track and field on the track before I got on this call from a few years ago. And I cherish that. If there's anything that can top having a great relationship with our student athletes and coaches, I want to know what it is, because I don't think there's anything that tops that.
Do you have a different perspective or maybe some unique experiences because you had to navigate being an independent in football for so long, even though that was not the stated goal of the school, was always to be in a major conference so that you could be playing on the stage, that has helped inform these last couple of years of change for you, because you guys had to kind of navigate it differently for a while anyway?
Yeah, there was no question that independence was a big help for where we are today, getting into the Big 12. And I go back and say that we didn't really intend to be independent for this many years, 11 years. We thought we could jump in, show what we got, and someone would pick us up. Not so fast. Basically, it was a really rough stretch. But what it did do is it solidified Cougar Nation. We played football games across the country. We played in NFL stadiums. We'd play anytime, any day, anywhere. And we got to play some awesome teams that we would not have been afforded to play if we had been in a conference. And so what happened is not only playing those games, but we got to our people. So we have a ton of BYU alums that live in the South. And so we went down and played Ole Miss and Arkansas. And I can't think of all of them right now, but a number of really great teams from the South. We played a great number of teams in the state of Texas. We went back and played teams, Boston College on the East Coast. We played Michigan. And I think that gave us a great deal of exposure. And our teams weren't always great during those years, but I think people started to recognize, hey, they're playing the big dogs on the road, and it did well for us. So it gave us the exposure we needed and access on TV, because we had an agreement with ESPN and all of our games were on TV.
I brought the success in football up earlier and kind of poked at the obvious when it came to the end of your guys' season, when the CFP really didn't seem to, I guess, publicly maybe give you as much consideration as a lot of people felt that you guys deserved. Just how did you handle that whole process? I mean, being in that mix and being in that discussion and, being probably disappointed, I would imagine, to some extent. But how did Tom Holmoe and BYU football just kind of wrap your heads around that experience, and what did you take away from it, and how are you left feeling about it all, even here a couple months later?
Sure.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com.
You know, I come from a belief that if you were good enough to make it, they would have voted you in. And so I feel like Kalani Sataki and myself, we got together often and said, Kalani, they might not let us in. We feel like we have a good team. But if they don't, we'll get better. We had a good team. We're going to build off of this. But you can't beg to get into these things. And it was a little bit tough for me to see teams or people begging to get in. And I served on the men's basketball committee at one time a number of years ago. And I know what it was like to be on that committee. We did everything we could to be fair and honest and put the best teams in. And for those years that I was on the committee, every single year, someone had a complaint. So that's just the way it's going to be. The best teams get in. And I know that Kalani and our team this year said, let's not leave any doubt. Let's just be one of the ones that gets in. Don't be number 12. Be number 5. Be number 4. Get there. Do what you have to do to get there. So I think that this experience this year said we traveled down the road quite a bit, and there's still a long ways to go on the journey, but we're moving right towards that.
Well, you've experienced that as a school university before when you were looking at becoming or getting out of independent. Big 12 back in what, 2000?
Yes.
When Nebraska and Colorado left, BYU and some of the schools that are still out there were in the mix. How close, actually, Tom, were you to being a part of the Big 12 when they accepted West Virginia and TCU?
Well, there was that time, but even going back before that, I wasn't here, but as the, urban legend has it at BYU, was that we were in, and then the governor of Texas just said, no, Baylor's going in. And so if I have any beef to pick, it's with Baylor.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a beef with Baylor, but that's what it is. It's the same exact thing. If you're good enough to bring in at the time, they'll get you. And so like those times, it wasn't significant enough. And then this time when Bob Bowlesby was at the head of the conference and working with the presidents of the conference, we tried. There was a time they put an RFP. We went down and we made a presentation, and I believe we knocked their socks off. We showed them what BYU does as far as TV, as far as demographics across the country, where our fans are in the Big 12 footprint. And I think the people from the Big 12 were like, whoa, that would be helpful to have in our conference. But we didn't get in. They decided not to expand. And it was a few years down the road that they said, let's go. And look, we've performed well in the Big 12 with our sports, but I think that it's a year-to-year thing. You can never, ever rest on your laurels in this conference. You got to bring it every game, every week, every year. And I just was watching one of our teams that's a fall team, women's volleyball practicing, and they're getting after it like there's no tomorrow for next year because that women's volleyball schedule in the Big 12 is tough.
Director of Athletics at BYU, Tom Holmoe, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, by the way, they decided not to keep us in with Texas and Oklahoma for historical reference on that, Tom. I know you're too nice of a guy to throw that out there, but when this all went down, Bob Bowlesby went to the Senate here in Texas and laid it all out because he had nothing to lose at that point. I'm curious about your passion for Halloween. And something that, I hope we still get to see on social media, even though now you'll be retired. Where did that come from, and where did you decide to ratchet it up along the way?
All right, here we go. So I was here as the athletic director at BYU, and our women's soccer team dresses up as a team every year. Not exactly the same, but they all dress up, and they have actually a kind of pseudo practice for a little bit. And the day before this practice, they came to me and said, Tom, what are you going to dress up as tomorrow? I said, what are you talking about? And they said, well, you have to dress up tomorrow. I said, okay. So I went home, and this is like 13, 14 years ago. And I said to my kids, hey, what should I be for Halloween tomorrow? And they said, why don't you be Justin Bieber? So I wore a gold chain, a little T-shirt. They put a little funky wig on me. I went to school the next day and got laughed at and super criticized. And I'm pretty competitive. So I said, all right, Tom, what are you thinking about? Who are you? What are you supposed to do to rip me up? And I said, all right, game on. We'll see you next year. And the rest is history.
Tom, going back to the Big 12, and that's great. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm glad Paul brought that up. But going back to the Big 12, you probably didn't have much of an idea. I mean, I don't know what everybody knows, but you probably didn't have much of an idea when you guys were getting in finally that there was going to be more to follow soon from the Pac-12 because of all that happened there. But what's it like to look around? We've talked to a lot of people about how cool it is to have Utah and BYU in the same conference, but to have that and to look around, and there's Arizona on the schedule, and there's Arizona State, and here's Colorado, and this whole sort of western part of the conference, so to speak. How enjoyable is that to kind of have some close proximity that maybe you weren't expecting originally when you joined the Big 12?
Yeah, I think it's just gravy. When I came to BYU to play football in 1978, Arizona and Arizona State were in the WAC.
Yeah.
They weren't in the Pac-10. It was the Pac-8. And so after my freshman year, they joined the Pac-10. So to be able to reunite with our arch rivals, the University of Utah, and bring in Arizona and Arizona State, as well as Colorado, which is a great regional team for us, that is just pure, thick gravy. I love every bit about it. It kind of caused a little bit of a stir, I think, for the legacy teams in the Big 12 because of travel. But like, we just live in a day and age right now where travel for student athletes is a factor. But when you're talking about the competitiveness of conferences, and you're looking at Cal and Stanford in the ACC and UCLA and USC and Washington and Oregon in the Big 10, what about geography? Come on now. We just got to work through this, folks. In the world of college athletics, I said this earlier, not just college, but any sport. Sports about change. Sports about transitions. And we in the Big 12 are still in a big transition. We might be set, so to speak, with these 16 teams. But if you follow Commissioner Yormark at all, he's never set. He's never going to be standing still. And he's always challenging our schools, our ADs and presidents. Let's do everything we possibly can to get better. And I'm all for that.
Can that happen? Yes, by cultivating and creating and developing talent. But can that happen as long as every time there's money and a pie that the Big 12 is getting less of that, and other conferences like the SEC and Big 10 are getting more of it when they already have more of it?
Good question. And the answer is yes, that is definitely a factor. But I mean, there was a way in which we got the four corner schools, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State. There was somehow, some way, people came to the table and they negotiated a really good settlement. And I just believe that if it's to be, it might not be this time. So there's been some talk, and I'm not going to get into it, but y'all know about it, about some possibilities. And it's tabled right now, and it's kind of out up in the iCloud right now. But we'd be crazy not to always consider the possibilities. And you can have it on the back burner, but when the time is right and you have to strike, you got to be ready.
Last thing, I know you got other things to do. As every day of an AD of a college athletics program, where do you, and is there one of the Super Bowl rings you won with San Francisco that you wear more than the others?
I don't wear any of them. And I did for a while. When I first wore them, I don't think I took them off. I slept in it. That was in '84. But I think as I grew older, one of the things that it was just a lesson I learned, and people asking me all the time now, what have you learned as an AD? Well, it's not as an AD, it's just what have I learned in my life? And that is that it's not about the events as much as about the people. And, those rings, they're flashy. They're way too big for my small little hands. And I think that when I look at them, I see the jewels that are on there. I see my teammates and the coaches on that team. And it's become somewhat sacred to me that it's not about showing off that, because what those rings mean to me are the family that we had and the players that I have a text thread on this phone with 49er DBs from the late 70s and early and through the 80s, through all those Super Bowl teams. And we have about 15 to 18 guys that are talking, often once a week. That was a long time ago.
Jeez.
You can't take that away. And I would trade in my rings for this text of connecting with my teammates. So instead of bringing them out, I have 4 kids and 4 rings. And I told the kids, when the time's right, they're yours.
Oh, that's awesome. The roar of the crowd as a former player, but the locker room, the camaraderie, all of that is, and now what you see as student athletes grow up in front of you and move on to do what you do, maybe down the road because of the culture at BYU and elsewhere where you've been. That's awesome. Thank you. Congratulations. We might try to get you on one more time, man.
Let's do it.
I love the stories that you tell us. Appreciate your time, Tom, and have a great weekend.
Thanks. You guys got a lot of energy. Good luck to the Baylor.
Thank you.
Bears.
Baylor, BYU Director of Athletics, Tom Holmoe, with us.